Hey everybody, welcome back to another movie review. Hope you guys been enjoying the content channel as of late. Yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying all the content so far. I guess for some reason YouTube has a problem. We'll get into that, I guess, in the next video because there is something going on, and I think I should probably ask you guys, like maybe you guys can help me understand what this is. I'm gonna send YouTube an email as well because some weird stuff's going on behind the scenes, but that's for another day. Me and my brother just got back from the theater. My brother decided to step out for this review as well, just to hang out with some friends. And today he also got his permit. Congratulations, bro. So I'll be writing solo for this review, and this is a review that we've been setting up for a little while, and now here we are. So that movie we're going to be discussing today is Superman, which was written and directed by James Gunn. This is, of course, the first of the newly rebooted DC universe, which is being helmed by James Gunn, who is in charge now of the DC Studios division at Warner Brothers. This stars David Cornsweet as the title character, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, amongst a couple of characters here and there. And the story goes, we are introduced to Superman at a very vulnerable point. And as the film kind of moves through, we're kind of projecting that specific idea of vulnerability about within the confines of this very powerful character. And the world is having contingencies. They're trying to figure out who this person is. Is he genuine with his actions? Because he is doing things within his own jurisdiction. You know, he stops a war, he does this and that. And people are wondering if there's anything more to that. Is there some sort of dictatorship? Is there anything else buried underneath? Or is it just a guy trying to do the right thing? And amidst all this, Lex Luthor is played by Nicholas Hoult, is concocting his evil schemes, trying to find ways to get the public to pivot against Superman. And as the story plays out, Superman is met with other heroes, namely a Green Lantern, a Hawkgirl, and as events unfold, Superman eventually needs to find his way to navigate through this world and to ultimately present to the world and ultimately also to himself his genuine purpose in being on the planet Earth. So as I established, this is the first of the newly rebranded DC universe. It is also the second reboot for Superman, according to the Wikipedia page. First of which, of course, came in the form of Man of Steel, which was the starting point to the previous DC universe, which we also discussed on this channel on a Film of the Week, and here we are now with that first entry into a new era. And there are things about it that are noteworthy. There are some commendable performances here and there. I would say Nicholas Hoult definitely is a standout. You can really, really buy that he is this very just this mean-spirited, angry, pretty much almost that of a man-child. And you could totally buy that, you know. You definitely just rooting against him the entire time, and I think that a lot of that is translated through Nicholas Hoult's own performance. I think he does a very, very commendable job in that specific role. Other performances I think are fine. I don't find them to be incredibly noteworthy. David Cornsweet as in the title role, I don't find him to be particularly elevated or as solid. I think that he just does a fair job. You get some hints of charisma, you get some hints of other dimensions, but ultimately it's just okay. And I think that extends to the other performances as well, at least for me anyway. So decent performances here and there. Visually, there's some interesting things going on. But oddly enough, the last video that I just did, as I was talking about Batman vs. Superman, and I was talking a lot about how that film was juggling multiple things at once and how that was kind of the downfall for that film. It is really, really odd to come into this and to find very similar issues that I did with Batman vs. Superman, and almost to the point, almost pretty much accurately the same things. if this film, it is trying to juggle three different things, and first of which is to set up future movies without getting to spoilers. But there's other characters that aren't just Superman that also appear in the film, like I said, a Green Lantern and stuff like that. So they're trying to establish certain things there, and then the film also wants to present some kind of political underbelly, which also Batman vs Superman also played with a little bit, which unfortunately has also spawned a controversy on its own because just politics or politics. And the third of that story is the title character trying to represent something of a Superman arc. And unfortunately so, when it comes to this specific film, kind of in similar ways to Batman vs Superman, it doesn't know how to manage all of those specific ideas and to marry them all into some sort of cohesive story. A lot of the times, the structure just doesn't feel as earnest or understanding. I don't particularly like that we are starting the story of Superman, in such a very particular point in his life. It kind of reminds me of that of like Matt Reeves' Batman, where it just kind of plucks you in. But in how they execute that story, it makes a whole lot of sense in developing that character, because it's taking a very particular point of view and a particular perspective on the character. With this, it's almost making assumptions that you know things about the character and about just generally the world at large. It makes assumptions that you know things about Clark Kent, how he operates, and about Superman in general, and about Lex Luthor, and about all these other characters, to which they assume through that you will find some level of intrigue and that performances might just suffice, which in my case it doesn't. And it just kind of, in my opinion, is pretty flat. It doesn't really breed a whole lot of intrigue, a whole lot of again, of genuine developments or genuine characteristics. And because of all the juggling of these ideas, when it comes to trying to develop relationships or developing connections, because it feels as though that's also a part of what the movie is trying to talk about in terms of a thematic quality, is about connections and about humanity and preaching that of kindness. It just doesn't register as much. I don't buy the relationship between Superman and Lois Lane. I don't buy, I don't buy the hostilities. It just feels as though that everybody is kind of at each other's throats for real, no apparent reason. It just comes across as hostile and aggressive when it's trying to preach kindness. It's like a weird thing. If anything, it makes a lot of these characters, just by how they're being directed and by how the actors are choosing to perform them, it almost feels a lot of times they're being very condescending, especially the Superman character. David Cornsweet's performance at sometimes I feel is a little arrogant, a bit naive, or at least the characterization of the specific Superman is a bit arrogant and naive, and nobody seems to point those flaws out. At least it seems as though that they're like suggested, that like one scene with like Lois Lane interviewing him, it's like, I guess she's trying to make a point, but she doesn't really do that. And then there's things that just quite literally just show up just because, hey, I guess that would be interesting visually to show. And it makes you wonder again, why not either explore that further or just have suggested to that earlier? Because it just feels like a lot of things are just going on, and it feels like as if James Gunn is just wanting to do things for the sake of doing things, and less so within the confines of why it makes sense for this specific story and how we introduce ourselves to the Superman. Because similar to Batman vs Superman, you're trying to introduce a lot of stuff. You're trying to introduce to us, to a brand new Superman. You're trying to introduce us to a group of superheroes. You can kind of get the idea of where that's going. And then you're trying to also establish the world at large, that, how they view Superman and how they, how that plays into the political world, how that plays into public perception. Like, you're trying to do all those things very similar to what Batman vs Superman was trying to do, and you're kind of meeting at similar results. The best comparison I can give when it comes to providing my own perspective of the entire film. Really, it's not going to spoil it. Just using a scene from the movie, and I'm not spoiling anything, I promise. Is a scene where chaos is happening at this at the journalism place, the Daily Planet, and amidst all this chaos, Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen are presenting things to their boss as evidence to help in Superman's endeavors. And it's like, things are happening around you, and yet you're trying to tell us something. But you're trying to tell us something, and you're trying to present something to us in a formation, some line of logic, but it's muddled and it's not all that comprehensible when all these other things are also happening around you. So it just feels as though the film needed to manage. It needed a firmer hand in management, and not just presenting things for the sake of presenting things, or for the sake of establishing further installments in this brand new universe. I do think by general quality, I think that the film is better than what Batman vs Superman managed to do, because James Gunn can manage specific sequences, can manage just some flow that Zack Snyder can't. With this, it's not all to do with visualizations, not visuality, but it is lacking a line of cohesion, a line of consistency that gets you more invested and motivates you to actually seek out these characters more. I just found myself very bored. I found myself tuned out. Like for a large portion of its time, and I just don't think that what we have here in terms of foundation is really all that strong. They allude to other films, and I'm not even sure if I want to invest into that next film given what's set up, and it just feels as though that there's a lot of assuming and not a lot of just developing. And I don't like that spirit. Yes, Superman's a very popular character, but we don't know this particular Superman. We don't know this particular world. We don't know these particular people. We need to develop them. And it just carries a lot of things that I took issue with in the previous incarnation of this universe, and carries that over. And it doesn't really try to make things fundamentally better. If anything, it tries to use those same philosophies, and again, kind of meeting at similar results. But by the craftsmanship, there is something a little bit more enticing compared to Batman vs Superman. But I just find myself very just bored and very just it just doesn't feel as inspired. That's just my particular feeling on it. It just feels uninspired, boring, and again, just lacking a flow, a real line of consistency to manage all these developments and ideas that it's wanting to explore and juggle. So I feel as though less would have been more in this case. And it wants to establish a universe. And for a movie called Superman, I don't think that that's what it needed to do. So yeah, so those are my thoughts on Superman. I wasn't particularly crazy on it. I can't say I hate it or I think it's terrible. I'm just pretty mediocre on it. It just didn't really do much for me. So yeah, so those are my thoughts. You guys, what are your thoughts on Superman if you guys have seen it? And of course, your thoughts on the new DC universe, your thoughts on what is to come next. We have Supergirl, we have other things down the pipe, but let me know all your thoughts on this brand new universe and how you feel with this first entry, how you feel things are going so far, and your thoughts on previous DC universes with the Snyders and all that stuff. Let me know all your thoughts on all things DC related in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And and by the way, just to give you my brother's perspective, he actually really enjoyed himself. He had a very, very good time with it. My theater was not particularly enthusiastic when the movie ended. So just to point that out there. But you guys know your thoughts on all things Superman in the comment section below. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.